Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by a command performance.
What are you trying to say, BG?
We have what I think is the best FMM there is.
This is... wow.
I quite agree.
You know, I think you guys may have lost it. But here is our story.
Egypt. Night. Silhouetted against the amber sky stands the cold and foreboding tomb of Prince Fede Ki Am. At the entrance of the tomb stand the figures that compose the Campbell expedition.
Open, Campbell. Good. Well, gentlemen, are you all ready?
Indeed we are, yes.
Good. Dr. Martin, you go first.
As you wish.
I'm right then, yeah?
Right.
Bill Crane.
Yes, sir.
And I'll take up the rear.
Boy, is it dark in here.
What'd you expect in a tomb? Sunlight?
I wonder what would happen if we got lost in here.
You know, Pena, you always manage to come up with the nicest thought.
Why are we stopping?
There are 4 passages branching out here.
Oh, that's just fine.
I suppose the only thing that we can do is to each take a passage and see where it leads to. How does that sound?
Sensible to me.
All right. To do.
All right, then. And if you find anything, just shout and we'll all come running.
Boy, it really is dark in here. Where all these passages lead to? Oh, well. Good Lord. What was that?
What happened? Hey, what was that shot?
What's happened?
What was that
Dr.
shot?
Martin, what's happened to Campbell?
He's been shot, I guess. I was exploring that other tunnel when I heard a shot. I came running and found Campbell like this.
But who shot him?
He must have shot himself.
But his gun is still in his holster.
Yes, he must have tripped on this loose gravel, and the gun went off when he fell.
Well, come on. We can't let him lie here. Help me carry him out.
Well, gentlemen, I've examined him.
And?
I was right. The bullet I took out of his body was fired from Campbell's own gun.
I'm sorry to hear you say that.
Why? What do you mean?
Just that I'm holding you, Dr. Martin, for Campbell's murder.
What single clue led Crane to believe that Dr. Martin killed Campbell? In just a moment, we'll give you the solution. But first...
Wrong. I felt like I was in that tomb. Right there with them. It was amazing.
Okay, very happy you enjoyed it and all. But come on now, how in the heck did they determine any kind of killer? After all, it was so dark, and the guy was alone in that tunnel.
Does it really matter? That was a fantastic cinematic performance. Bravo.
Come on now. Really?
And now, back to our story.
But Campbell wasn't murdered. He shot himself.
That's what you try to make us believe.
What do you mean?
Just this. You said Campbell shot himself when he fell. But his gun was in his holster.
Well,
anyone knows you can't fire a gun until you've drawn back the firing pin. But what you forgot is that no one has the firing pin released when they're carrying a gun in a holster.
But that just proves that Campbell was murdered. It doesn't prove that I killed him.
Oh, yes, it does, Mr. Martin. You just told us that the bullet you removed from Campbell's body was fired from his gun. But that's impossible. Therefore, you switched bullets. An innocent man wouldn't have done that. No, Dr. Martin. That one clue proves that you and you alone murdered Campbell.
Okay, I am more confused than ever. First, they never really told us about the guns. The holster thing makes some sense, but dang man, switching bullets makes no sense unless they all had guns of different calibers. I could go on, but...
Wrong. I must interrupt. All that is true, but what about the performance?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. You are in for something different today. On the show, we have a visit from Alfred Hitchcock, and we have one of his classic stories.
Isn't he dead?
Well, yeah, but by the magic of recording medium, we can still have him on the show.
I see.
Also, today we have 2 listener stories about ghosts that live in a closet.
Well, that's odd.
Wait till you hear the stories. They are amazing. I received this email from Josh. Josh didn't say where he was from or leave a last name, but he did write this. I hate to point these things out, but you made a mistake on show 550. You stated that the Mobius strip was discovered by Johann Benedict and Ferdinand Mobius in 1858. That's not right. The names are actually Johann Benedict Listing and August Ferdinand Mobius. I know this because I wrote a paper on this quite recently. Thought you should know, Josh. Well, Josh, thank you for the correction. You're right, I did make a mistake. I got the first name wrong, and on the second, well, I must have missed August. Thank you for noticing. We have a second email from Lillian Jordan, who had this to say. Lillian lives in Bright, Texas. Love the show, and I have a question for you. The stories you read from the listeners each week are amazing. How many submissions do you get, and how many do you toss? Also, what is the reason you don't use a story? I sent one in, and it never aired. Lil. Well, Lil, thank you for the question. I get about 3 stories a week, and I use about half of them. The ones I plan to use go into a queue, and I pull from that each week. The most common reason I toss a story is due to content issues. I won't use stuff that could be offensive. I always contact the person if I can and tell them why I can't read their story and give them a chance to rewrite. As for your story, I don't have it. Either I missed it, it got sent to spam, or it's lost in the sea that is the internet. It can get lost if you send it via email and forget to give it a subject. The best way to send in a story is via the submission page on the main website. Those never get lost. Thank you for your question, Lil. Now, let's get on with the show. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to right now? Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Dragonlance Chronicles Book 1 by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Some books have a very special place in our hearts. We hold their stories close as if they were our very own. This book is one of those for me. I found it during a very dark time in my life. A friend wanted to cheer me up, so he took me to Powell Books in downtown Portland. Powell's is an iconic location in Portland. Famous authors, poets, and citizens have come here from around the world to visit. That day, I bought this book, and for the next few days, I couldn't put it down. It tells the epic story of 8 heroes who have come to save the world. Oh, and yes, they have to face dragons and draconians to do it. Here's a sample from near the beginning of the book.
Tika Whalen straightened her back with a sigh, flexing her shoulders to ease her cramped muscles. She tossed the soapy bar rag into the water pail and glanced around the empty room. It was getting harder to keep up the old inn. There was a lot of love rubbed into the warm finish of the wood, but even love and tallow couldn't hide the cracks and splits in the well-used tables or prevent a customer from sitting on an occasional splinter. The inn of the last home was not fancy, not like some she'd heard about in Haven. It was comfortable. The living tree in which it was built wrapped its ancient arms around it lovingly, while the walls and fixtures were crafted around the boughs of the tree with such care as to make it impossible to tell where nature's work left off and man's began. The bar seemed to ebb and flow like a polished wave around the living wood that supported it. The stained glass in the window panes cast welcoming flashes of vibrant color across the room. Shadows were dwindling as noon approached. The inn of the last home would soon be open for business. Tika looked around and smiled in satisfaction. The tables were clean and polished. All she had left to do was sweep the floor. She began to shove aside the heavy wood benches as Otik emerged from the kitchen, enveloped in fragrant steam.
"Should be another brisk day, for both the weather and business,"
he said, squeezing his stout body behind the bar. He began to set out mugs, whistling cheerfully. "I'd like the business cooler and the weather warmer," said Tika, tugging at a bench. "I walked my feet off yesterday and got little thanks and less tips. Such a gloomy crowd. Everybody nervous, jumping at every sound. I dropped a mug last night and, I swear, Retark drew his sword."
"Pah!"
Otik snorted.
"Retark's a solace seeker guard. They're always nervous. You would be too if you had to work for Hedrick, that faint—"
"Watch it," Tika warned. Otik shrugged.
"Unless the High Theocrat can fly now, he won't be listening to us. I'd hear his boots on the stairs before he could hear me."
But Tika noticed he lowered his voice as he continued.
"The residents of Solace won't put up with much more, mark my words. People disappearing, being dragged off to who knows where. It's a sad time."
He shook his head. Then he brightened.
"But it's good for business."
Lifelong friends, they went their separate ways. Now they're together again, though each holds secrets from the others in his heart. They speak of a world shadowed with rumors of war. They speak of tales of strange monsters, creatures of myth, creatures of legend. They do not speak of their secrets. Not then. Not until a chance encounter with a beautiful, sorrowful woman who bears a magical crystal staff. She draws the companions deeper into the shadows, forever changing their lives and shaping the fate of the world. No one expected them to be heroes, least of all them. That is Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and you can have this book today. Here's what Audible has set up for us. Audible is offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can get Dragons of the Autumn Twilight today. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
This story comes from the great city of Los Angeles. It was sent in by Leslie Jennings, and she has titled it, That's My Dad. I was maybe 12, maybe 13, currently 24, and I remember this like it was yesterday. My mom had bought a new house. She was hoping for a fresh start. The house needed some cosmetic work done, but otherwise was really nice. It had a fenced-in backyard, so we could finally have a dog. Once we had moved in, things were great. We never noticed anything too weird, but I guess that's how all these stories start. I don't remember exactly when, but I do remember how. Every morning I would wake up and find my closet door open. I didn't think too much of it. My sister was around 6 then, and she was always getting into my stuff. Then I started having some weird dreams of a shadow man that would stand in my closet. I knew he was watching me, but I was too scared to move or say anything. This kept happening every night, and it was affecting my sleep. So much so that I was falling asleep in class at school. My mom asked me what was going on, and I explained my dreams. At first, she brushed it off as a recurring nightmare, but they kept coming, and my life was not a happy one. One day I got this bright idea to bring all my heavy school books home and put them in front of my closet door, thinking this would stop this creep from watching me. The next morning, I woke up in horror to see my book bag, with my history, biology, and English textbooks in it pushed aside, and the door was open. Now I knew that this was real. I told my mom everything, and she decided to do some digging about the house. I thought to myself, why didn't you do this before we bought the place? She couldn't find anything, so she went around to all the neighbors to ask if they knew anything about the house. They told her a drug dealer used to live there, and he was murdered. He apparently was stabbed multiple times. Honestly, I don't know how my mom felt, but she put up a tough front and figured out a way to have the house cleansed. Well, the story doesn't end here. The last time he appeared to me was probably the most terrifying. That night, while trying to fall asleep, I heard the door creak open, and I stupidly looked. I saw the man. He was a heavier-set guy with a bald head. He had dark eyes and a blank look on his face. Kind of sad-looking. He had a tattoo on his neck, and he was probably in his 40s. I can still picture him today as clear as day. I wanted to scream, but I ran to my little sister's room and slept on her floor. The next day we were playing outside when a car I didn't recognize pulled into our driveway. My mom came outside, concerned about this stranger. She walked up to the car and talked to the driver. Then a young girl hopped out. She had to be 14 or 15, not too sure. My mom talked to her for a while, and then she called me over. She explained that she used to live here, and it was her dad that was killed in the house. In fact, she was in the house when it happened, along with both of her grandparents. She told us that her dad had decided to quit drug dealing so that he could be better for his daughter. Then, one day, a guy who was looking for some drugs came by and didn't like that he couldn't get any. A fight broke out when her dad tried to make him leave. He died protecting his family. After I heard that, I became overwhelmed with emotion. This was a lot for me to take in. My mom asked if I could explain to her what I had seen. So I did. Then the girl started to cry after I described the man. She said, "That's my dad." I was so confused and honestly kind of scared. She pulled out a picture and showed me, and sure enough, her dad was the ghost that I had seen in my closet. My mom let her walk through the house one last time. After that day, I never saw him again, no dreams, and my closet never opened on its own again. Leslie Jennings, Los Angeles, California. Leslie, that is an amazing story. I got chills as I read it, and I have to say, I won't forget this one. Many stories we have are so dark. This one felt refreshing, and I totally believe it. Thank you for sharing this with us. As you may know, I am collecting stories from the show into a book. I can guarantee this one is gonna make the cut. There are a lot of threads that tie the paranormal stories together, and I think we've had a lot of them on the show. For example, when it comes to orb stories, they are reported as being orange most of the time. Black-eyed kid stories always present a child wanting to come into your house or to get into your car. And another one is that ghosts seem to like the closet, like in our first story. This next story from Ira Montague, who lives in New York, continues that trend. Ira has titled his story, A Shadow in the Closet. Hey Ron, you asked for a story, and I have one for you. I live in a small studio apartment that has a large window, a couch that makes into a bed, a very tiny kitchen area, no bathroom, and a walk-in closet. Yes, you heard that right. From what I understand, that room at one time was a bathroom. But for whatever reason, they went with a community system. When I first moved in, I liked the idea of the closet. The shared bathroom thing took a bit to get used to because it's co-ed. But that is a story for another genre of podcast. I decided to make the closet into a work/game room. This turned out great because during the Great Lockdown, I had to work from home nearly all of the time. I never really noticed anything strange until one night I heard a knocking sound coming from the closet. I went in to investigate, and there she, or maybe it was, a dark blob, sort of human-shaped, sitting at my desk. It appeared to turn and look at me, and then vanished. Well, I was stunned, to say the least, and stood there for some time. In the end, I was sure I was seeing things, and I went back to bed. The next night, the event was repeated. This time, I knew that it was real. It didn't happen the next few nights, but the event occurred again. This time I tried to talk to it, but got nothing back for my troubles. The weird thing is that I didn't feel any fear. I should have been scared out of my wits. Now, I mentioned the bathroom thing. I decided to ask the folks that I ran into if they had seen anything. Mostly I got odd-type looks, but the general response was that they knew not what I speak. I contacted the building staff and asked them about it. I was directed to the building manager, and I had this dialogue with him. Can I help you? I've been seeing this shadow man in my closet. I see. He appears every few days? I see. A dark blob sitting in my desk chair? I see. Do you know anything about this? What apartment are you in? 11D. I see. Do you know anything? Well, this is not the first time I've heard about this. It was my turn to say, I see, and I added, tell me more? Well, it's a bit before my time, but that room once housed Brad somebody. My understanding is that he had an unfortunate encounter with a, mistress. He was found a few weeks later after the neighbors complained of an odor. The police were able to apprehend the girl, and she was held at Rikers Island until her death. I looked at the man. So I live with this Brad? Yes, it appears you do. I can put you on the waiting list for another apartment. No, I said. It took me a year to get in here. I thanked him for his time, and I went home. So, Ron, I live with a ghost named Brad. It's not too bad and only unnerves me a bit when I think about it. He is a quiet roommate, unless he does that knocking thing. I hope you enjoyed my story and share it with your people. Ira Montague, New York. Well, Ira, as you can see, I did share it, and I want to thank both you and Brad for your story. If you send me some more information, I would love to do research on this and maybe get you some more answers. I'm having trouble grasping the shared bathroom thing, and I'd love to know more about that. I'm guessing it must be like college dorm life. Well, that's it for this time. If you have a story that you would like to share, like Brad did, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com, click on the story submission banner, leave your story, give it a title, and please tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story is quite a departure for us. We have an Alfred Hitchcock classic story that explores the deepest depths between a married couple. The suspense in this one is palpable and unrelenting. Kind of. The story is titled Mr. and Mrs. Smith and was originally a 1941 movie produced and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. What we will hear is the Screen Directors Playhouse adaptation of the movie. It stars Robert Montgomery, and it first aired on January 30th, 1941. I hope you enjoy this one.
From Hollywood, the NBC Theater presents
Screen Directors Guild assignment. Production, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Director, Alfred Hitchcock. Star, Robert Montgomery.
This is the Screen Directors Guild presentation of A Comedy of Marriage, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Robert Montgomery and introducing the director of the film, Alfred Hitchcock. Like every other art, the motion picture has developed its own popular catchphrases of evaluation and criticism. One of these is the Hitchcock touch. The Hitchcock touch is more than an artist's signature. It represents the highest pitch of the screen director's art, an indelible impression of the director's unique talents upon the other ingredients of the film. And now it is with pride that the NBC Theater presents the screen director of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and such other unforgettable pictures as Rebecca, Shadow of a Doubt, Spellbound, Notorious, and Rope. Ladies and gentlemen, Alfred Hitchcock.
Thank you very much. It would seem that after a decade of directing motion pictures in this country, I have become associated with that emotional skyrocket, suspense. So perhaps I should warn you that tonight, suspense has been suspended. I must confess to several attempts to scare the daylights out of an audience, or at least to tie their nerves into pretty little knots. But in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we reversed ourselves and turned to comedy. So don't bother sitting on the edge of your chair. It might strain your diaphragm if you feel a giggle coming on. Now we give you Mr. and Mrs. David Smith, a family with a formula, a couple with a constitution, a set of rules for a successful marriage. There has just been a domestic battle between the Smiths. Right now, handsome David Smith is reclining on the bathroom floor, his head pillowed on the bathroom scales. Anne Smith is brandishing a razor at her husband's throat. Mrs. Smith is shaving Mr. Smith. That's right, Mrs. Smith is shaving Mr. Smith, and they are both feeling very smug about the latest success of domestic diplomacy.
Oh, easy with that razor, Anne.
You look like 5 of the men who mutinied on the Bounty.
Oh, I'm late for work.
Now hold still.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
you realize that I've been away from the office 3 solid days?
I know. But we had to keep our main rule. You are forbidden to leave the apartment after a quarrel unless you've made up.
Yeah.
If every married couple had that rule, there'd never be a divorce.
No one would ever get down to the office either.
We've got respect for each other, David.
Yep, that's our big trick.
David,
Uh-huh.
we're very happy, aren't we?
Well, what do you expect me to say at the point of a razor?
David, if you had it to do all over again, would you marry me?
Uh-oh.
Remember Rule 7. Be frank and honest with each other at all times.
Well, frankly and honestly, if I had it to do all over again, put that razor down a minute, will you? Thanks. I wouldn't marry you.
What?
Well, a man gives up so much freedom and privacy and independence when he gets... Oh, now your feelings are hurt.
Oh, no. No, it's perfectly all right.
So can I get up now and go to work?
Of course, David, if you want your freedom.
I just want you to get up off my chest, darling.
I don't want to cling to my husband if I'm not wanted.
And I do want you. I love you. I'm crazy about you. I'm used to you.
Oh, if my only hold on you is that you're used to me.
Darling, you're my little girl, and I'm frantic about you. Now, forgive me. Say you forgive me. Oh, come on, say you forgive me.
I forgive you.
Well, give me a kiss. Now, can I get up and go back to work? Morning, Jeff.
Well, good morning, David. Glad to see I have a partner in the law business again. You've been out 3 days this time.
Well, you know how Ann is, Jeff.
You don't have to apologize to me, David. I envy you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, she's a good kid.
Oh, there's a little guy named Deaver waiting for you in your office.
Deaver. Never heard of him unless it's Danny Deaver. They hung him in the morning, didn't they? Oh, well, I'll go right in and talk to him. Are there, Mr. Deaver?
Good morning. Mr. Smith, I take it?
Yeah. What can I do for you, Mr. Deaver?
Well, Beecham is on the other side of the river.
It is? Say that again, will you?
Well, Beecham is on the other side of the river.
That's nice.
Yes, but it was always incorporated in Brender County, which is in Idaho. You follow me?
Yes, we're in Idaho. Go on.
Yeah. Well, we in Beecham found out that we belong in Nevada.
Yes?
So anybody who got married in 1946 with an Idaho license...
Yes?
Like you did...
Oh?
Well, they aren't really married.
Oh, they aren't?
Oh, you really are married and everything, but the Chamber of Commerce figured if everybody got married all over again, it'd be better.
That's pretty funny.
And so here's your $2 back. Now you can use it to get another license.
Well, now that's very square of you boys in Beecham.
You just get married again, that's all.
Oh?
Well, I've got to be on my round. Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Goodbye, Mr. Deaver. Thanks a lot.
Oh, no. Not at all. Thank you.
Yeah. Mrs. David Smith. Now, Miss Ann Krausmeyer. Miss Albright, get me my home, please. Little Annie Krausmeyer. My favorite date.
And with Beecham on the other side of the river, Mrs. Smith, that makes us in Nevada, not Idaho. So the marriage isn't legal.
Not legal? But for 3 years...
It's nothing serious, Mrs. Smith.
Oh, no, just a matter for the Vice Squad, that's all.
Please, Mrs. Smith.
Stop calling me Mrs. Smith, as though that makes a good woman out of me.
Oh, all you do is get married again and everything. I explained it all to your husband.
Oh, then David knows about it, too.
Spoke to him an hour ago.
Well, why didn't he tell me about it when he telephoned?
Well, you see...
Oh, yes, of course. That's why he invited me to Mama Lucy's restaurant.
Yes.
That's where he proposed to me 3 years ago.
Oh.
He's going to ask me again tonight. He's a dear.
Well, just so he isn't a stag.
Oh, Mr. Deaver. Oh, he'll ask me tonight. He'd better ask me tonight. It's a lovely dinner, isn't it, David, dear?
Going up in price since 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, some things haven't. I mean, like postage.
Yeah, airmail just went up to 6 cents.
Well, yes, but I mean, like permits and licenses and stuff.
Yeah, fine if you own a dog.
David.
Now, don't nag me about buying a dog again, dear, no.
David,
Yeah?
where are we going to go after this?
Home?
Well, aren't we supposed to do something before we go home?
Nope. Just go home.
Oh. Oh, what happened at the office today? Anything new, exciting, unusual?
Same old routine, same old palaver, yakety, 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 yakety.
That's all?
That's all.
That does it. That does it.
Anne.
You know we're not married.
Annie, the public...
You were just going to go through life with me with that silly, oh, what I know about us expression on your stupid face.
Put down that champagne bottle. I was going to tell you later.
Back home and without getting married, sure.
Annie, everybody
If
is
you don't
looking.
leave me alone, I'll call the police.
Annie, for heaven's sake.
Help, police.
Annie, great Scott.
This man is molesting me.
Annie.
Help.
Annie.
Help.
Oh, for crying out. Annie.
Well,
Remember me?
libertine.
Brought you flowers.
Eat 'em.
Ow! Bido's! You broke Bido's! Bido's is bleeding. Ed, open this door at once. Ed! Eddie! Anne,
Stop following
you're
me.
my wife.
We are not married.
All right, we'll get married. Does that suit you?
That's a nice, snarling proposal. Well, I wouldn't have you.
What's the matter with me? Name one thing about me you don't like.
Oh, my, aren't we vain?
One thing I am not is vain.
Oh. What about that tar stuff you kept rubbing in your hair that smelled up the bedroom?
I was only trying to keep my hair for you.
Well, keep it for yourself. I've got hair.
Oh.
Now beat it before I call the police.
Now you see here, Annie.
Help! Police! Masher!
Annie.
Masher! Public nuisance!
Oh, Annie.
Masher!
David, as your friend as well as your law partner...
Yeah, I know. I'll catch up on my work, Jeff. Don't worry.
It's not that, Dave. I want you to drop into your own apartment tonight for dinner. I'll be there.
You? What for?
Well, Anne is fond of me, and I'm fond of her. I think I can get this thing straightened out, Dave.
What, Jeff? What, Jeff, you're the best friend a fella ever had.
We're partners, aren't we?
You're the best partner a fella ever had.
We were schoolmates, David.
Yes, and you were the greatest halfback that Alabama ever had.
You mean that, Dave?
I used to think that Hinkle was the greatest, but Hinkle couldn't lay a hand on you.
Thank you, David boy. Thank you.
Hello, Anne.
Come in, David.
Anne, I want to tell you here and now how sorry I am
Talk
about...
to my lawyer.
Lawyer? What lawyer? Hiya, Jeff.
Anne has asked me to represent her in this case, Dave.
She what?
Asked him to represent me.
She doesn't really need a lawyer, you know.
Well, then you ought to do fine.
Dave, as a lawyer yourself, you know that Anne may halt this relationship between you at any time and marry someone else. As in the case of Peterson versus Peterson, Adams versus Adams, and Gimble versus New Pennsylvania Coal Company.
Stabbed.
Now, David, boy.
That's dirty tennis.
David, I'm asking Anne here in your presence if she'll think of me as a possible someone else to succeed you, David.
Oh, that's very sweet of you, Jeff. You know I've always been fond of you.
Thank you, Anne. I shall regard that as encouragement.
Oh, Jeff.
That settles it. Goodbye, Anne.
Oh, goodbye, David.
And you, Jeff Custer, comparing yourself to Hinkle as a football player. You couldn't even wring out Hinkle's sweatshirt. Goodbye.
Hello?
Anne, darling.
Oh, yes, Jeff.
Great news. My mother and dad have just come up from Alabama. They want to meet you.
Meet me, but I'm a Yankee.
When they see you, they'll forgive you. Meet us all in our office in 30 minutes. And Anne.
Yes?
You know that daring, rather low-cut dress of yours?
Yes.
Don't wear it.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, y'all.
So, you're my boy's fiancée. Well, yeah.
Those lovely Confederate gray eyes.
Well, thank y'all.
Any of your family from the South, Miss Krausmeyer?
No. Oh, but an ancestor of mine deserted from the Union Army.
Many Northerners saw it that way. Yes, I commend him quite highly. Son, this young lady will do.
Jeff, my secretary tells me that... am I interrupting something, Jeff?
Mother, father, David Smith, my partner.
How do? Happy to know a partner of Jefferson, sir.
And this is Anne Krausmeyer, Jeff's fiancée.
We've met, I think.
Fiancée?
And I was just about to suggest a boat trip for Anne and Jeff to New Orleans.
Boat trip? Oh, but Anne isn't a very good sailor, I know. I tell you what, though, Jeff, if she gets sick on the boat, you put her to bed and put a hot water bottle on her stomach and hold it there.
Hold it? There?
No matter how she hollers, you hold it there. Never failed with us, did it, Anne?
David fancies himself quite the doctor.
Yes, and by the way, Anne, when does my laundry come back? I'm out of shorts.
Shorts?
His running shorts, Mrs. Custer. Every morning, David runs 5 miles.
Runs? He's a Yankee, all right.
Anne sort of took care of David's things around the house, Mother.
Yes, best little housekeeper you ever saw. And let me tell you something. I know of no finer compliment than this. When I've been sitting across the breakfast table for a woman for 3 years and still want to marry her, that girl has something.
Well.
Jefferson, may I see you all in private?
Why, certainly, Father. In this other office.
Come along, Mother. Come along.
David Smith, I hope you're satisfied, making those 2 fine old people miserable.
Well, what about me being unhappy?
You're always thinking of yourself. Why can't you be like Jeff?
Because I can't climb trees.
Oh. Jeff is so kind and considerate and gentle.
Since when are you so crazy about the gentle act? Do you recall how I grew this scar on my forehead? You threw a bed lamp at me. I was out for 3 days.
That's only because you'd been out for 2 nights.
Very funny.
It's all right, Anne. I'll explain the entire situation in quick order.
We understand completely, Anne.
And we want you and Jeff to visit us at Lake Placid next week.
Lake Placid? Oh, I'd love it. Thank you.
As for this northern lawyer...
Mr. Custer, is it my fault that I'm related on my mother's side to General Sherman?
General Sherman?
Father!
You are listening to the Screen Directors Guild production of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Robert Montgomery with Mary Jane Croft, and introducing the director of the film, Mr. Alfred Hitchcock.
Bye.
Thanks for driving us up here, boys. We'll telephone the hotel if we need you.
All right, Mr. Custer.
Oh, this air's so invigorating. Whew. Wonderful.
There's our cabin, Anne.
Oh, it's large, isn't it?
There are 3 suites altogether. 3 suites in a unit.
Oh, I see.
You'll find your suite quite comfortable, I trust. They're adjoining, but not connecting.
Oh, dear, proper Jeff. Hey, maybe there'll be some time for skiing before it gets dark, huh? Oh, Jeff, who's that coming out of the suite on the other side of my suite?
Devil.
It's David.
The same thing.
Oh, he's ill. Look, he's staggering. He'll fall down the steps. David, you'll fall. Oh.
He did.
David! David!
There, that gets him in bed.
Oh, here, help me get these wet clothes off him.
Why, Anne.
Oh, we'll go away the first 2 weeks in December.
What's he talking about?
Oh, we were going to come up here the first 2 weeks in December.
Delirium.
You'll be crazy about it, Anne.
Oh, he's been up here all week torturing himself. Well, come on, help me get him undressed.
Anne!
Well, I'm his wife. Come on.
Look out!
Huh?
Don't fall now.
Oh, you see, he thinks we're skiing. All right, now, come on, off with his clothing.
Watch out there. Never try to pass the tree on both sides at once.
He's so sick. Is that a rattle?
I don't know. I wish I could hear it again. He's just clearing his throat.
Oh, he looks awful.
He could do with a shave.
I'll shave him.
You will?
I always shaved him. I'll find his shaving stuff in this bag here.
Just a minute, Anne.
Huh?
He's asleep now.
Oh, poor boy.
Let's go next door to your rooms. I want to talk to you very seriously. And so that's my position, Anne. I love you and I want to marry you. But I'm not sure that you're not still in love with David. Perhaps you better think about your promise to marry me, Anne, for your sake.
Jeff, I don't think a person ever existed who was as fine and generous as you are.
I'm thinking of your happiness, Anne.
You're very sweet. Now I better have a look and see how David's doing.
Don't wake him up.
Well, I'll just have a look through his window. I'll be back in a minute, darling. Oh, the beast! The scheming, tricky beast. I'll murder him for this. I'll have his heart out. You!
Anne.
Sitting up in bed, sucking on oranges, smoking cigarettes.
And put down that lamp.
Pretending you came here on a heartbroken bender, the big sympathy act.
Anne, I love you. Put down that lamp, and you love me, and I won't give you up. I won't let you marry that heap of southern fried chicken.
I love Jeff, and he loves me, and don't you call him fried chicken.
You're not going to get married.
We are going to get married.
You can't. What kind of a combination is fried chicken and calf's brain?
You!
Oh, all right, all right. I've done all I could to win you back because I wanted you back. I've neglected my work and lost clients, and now I'm through. Washed up. Go on, marry the guy. I hope you'll be very happy. And may all your children be dietitians.
Oh, you! Jeff, I can't help worrying about David. He really does love me. Now he'll take to drinking.
Or he'll find someone else, Anne.
Oh, no. I'm afraid he'll ruin a brilliant career on account of me. If I could only make him hate me, despise me, if I could disillusion him somehow, if I could make him think that Yes, Jeff. You go back to your suite. And whatever you hear in here, don't do a thing.
What are you going to do, Anne?
The walls are paper thin. He could hear everything if I pretended you were still here and Well, not the gentleman that you are.
Oh, I understand.
Yes.
This is a mighty fine thing you're doing for a man.
Yeah. Well, now, go out, but don't make a sound.
Good night, Anne.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night. Well, here goes. Oh, Jeff! No! Oh, Jeff, you were always such a gentleman. No! Oh, no, not Jeff, don't. No, I said don't. No! Oh, Jeff. Oh, Jeff, you're so strong. I never realized you were so... No, Jeff. No, Jeff, no. Jeff, now, look, now, if you don't behave, I'll have to ask you to leave. No, please, Jeff. Oh, Jeff. Oh, no, what would your coach at Alabama think if he knew it?
All right, just put her down, you big hunk of... Oh.
David Smith, I despise you for busting in like this.
I see. Well, there's just one way of handling you, and that's rough.
Let go of me, you northern lawyer.
You're coming home with me.
I'm not. Jeff, help! SOS! Jeff, help!
Anne, David, come to your senses, both of them.
Hit him, Jeff. Let him have it. Murderize the bum.
Well, start murderizing.
David, I'll forgive you.
Oh.
For heaven's sake.
Well, would you respect me more if I knocked him down, Anne?
Would I? Why, you big hunk of southern fried chicken.
What?
I'll bet your mother was scared by a magnolia blossom.
No.
Now get out of here before I forget I'm a lady.
The lady says be so kindly as to scram, Jefferson.
Gladly. And what a narrow escape I've had.
Your slip is showing. I'm getting out of this clam bake.
Chicken fry.
Chicken fry.
Hey, what are you doing with the skis?
The sleigh service is discontinued after 10 at night.
Well, spend the night here.
Not on your life.
Okay. Here, let me fasten your skis for you.
No, it's all right. It's all done.
All set to go?
One side, please.
One moment.
Get your hands off of me.
A gentle, firm pressure on the shoulders like
quit
this
shoving. Hey!
may easily upset a skier and render him or her helpless.
Pull me out of this chair. You hear me?
Hmm?
What are you going to do? I warn you, I'll kill you in cold blood. Some night when you're fast asleep, I'll...
Shut up.
At breakfast, there'll be ground glass, and
I said shut up.
I'll say I was cleaning my gun when it accidentally...
Hmm?
I'll even say...
Yes?
Oh, David.
The NBC Theater has presented the Screen Directors Guild production of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Robert Montgomery with Mary Jane Croft, and introducing Alfred Hitchcock, the director of the film. Next week, the NBC Theater brings you the scintillating comedy Hired Wife, starring Rosalind Russell, and presenting screen director William Seiter. And now, here again are tonight's stars, Robert Montgomery and Mary Jane Croft, and screen director Alfred Hitchcock.
Ladies and gentlemen, as well as being a fine actor, Mr. Montgomery is also a screen director. You are about to hear the clash of great minds as two directors face each other across a microphone.
Hello, Bob. Hello, Hitch.
Well,
Well, what?
aren't you going to talk shop?
Shop. Whatever you're talking about, Mary Jane.
Well, you're both directors, aren't you?
Mary Jane, Alfred Hitchcock is more than a director. He's a force, a state of mind.
A state of mind? Have you ever seen a state of mind with a 92 3/4 inch waist measurement?
Well, you know, there's one thing bothering me about our radio version of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It didn't have the Hitchcock trademark, did it, Mr. Montgomery?
You know, that's right. Hitch, you can't place yourself in a radio scene the way you do in a picture just to identify the Hitchcock product.
Ah, that's where you're wrong. Do you remember the sound of shaving in the first scene?
Yeah.
Oh, when I was supposed to be shaving, Mr. Montgomery?
Yes. Well, when the sound man made that noise, those were my whiskers being scraped.
Ah, the Hitchcock touch. Good night, Hitch, Mary Jane. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And good night to you, Robert Montgomery, Mary Jane Croft, and Alfred Hitchcock.
Now, I'll bet a lot of you were thinking that this was going to be similar to the 2005 film, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that stars Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. In fact, the two films are completely unrelated. Screenwriter Simon Kinberg came up with the idea for the 2005 film after listening to a couple of his friends who were in therapy for their marriage. Kinberg noticed that the way they were describing it, it sounded aggressive and mercenary. And he thought it would make an interesting template for a relationship inside of an action film. Now, in the 1941 film, Norman Kresna came up with the basic idea of a marriage law gone bad and pitched it to Carol Lombard, who would play Mrs. Smith. She was enthusiastic about it and sold the idea to George Schaefer of RKO. He agreed to buy the project from Kresna, and then Alfred Hitchcock became involved. It became a box office smash and was one of Alfred Hitchcock's most unusual films. How about that?
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America is asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all. On a highway or a road along a levee, performance is sweeter, nothing can beat her. Life is completer in a Chevy. So make a date today to see the USA and see it in your Chevrolet.
Traveling east, traveling west, wherever you go, Chevy service is best. Southward or north, near place or far, there's a Chevrolet dealer for your Chevrolet car.
So make a date today to see the USA and see it in your Chevrolet.
Amazing and true, that was episode number 552. Josh, Lillian Jordan, Leslie Jennings, and Ira Montague made it happen. My thanks to all of you. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.